But Mikey Vickery-Brown's going to come and speak to us. Where is he? Here he is. So Mikey, go for it. Oh, look, Seth, he's shouting for you. You got a fan. Okay, go for it, Mikey. We're with you.
Cool, thank you. Should we start off in prayer? Let's do that. So, Father God, I pray that this evening you just speak to us. I pray that you'd open our ears and our hearts to hear from you, Lord, and hear what, just amazing things that are going to come out of tonight, Lord. And I just thank you that we can gather in a place like this and just worship you as one big family in your name. Amen. Cool. So, it's weird being up here, not behind a guitar. Anyway, so I'm Mikey. I'm just going to, a couple of minutes to showing you a little bit about myself. So can we have the next slide? There we go. A little bit about me. So I'm married to Rosie. She's great. She's amazing. She's there. I'm the youth leader here at Arun Church, officially head of Arun Youth. Sounds fancy. But all I do is just lead young people. The picture on my far left is the young people when we went to Soul Survivor in the summer. Hey, there's a few people out there. So, that's what I do. Hang out with young people, pretend I'm cool, pretend I'm trendy, say words that really cringe them out, like vexed, and they're like, oh, Mikey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I love it. That's what I do. That's my passion, working with young people and kind of telling them about Jesus. And then my other passion is football. Come on, Man United. So we're back on the road. Fourth now. Seth loves Man United. Amazing. And the church boys, obviously, Arun Church Football Club. Come on the church boys. Woo! And there they are. And then I sometimes play guitar. So that's a little bit about me. But today, what I want to share with you guys is we've been looking at, this guy called David in the Bible. He's a pretty great guy. And we're going to look at a particular story from 1 Samuel chapter 25. If you're a millennial and you've got a Bible app on your phone, then please get that out. If you identify yourself as a millennial and have a Bible app on your phone, then get that out. Or if you're just old school and you love paper and you've got a real Bible, then please get that out as well. So, I'm just going to dive straight into this story. Okay, if we could have the next slide. There's a little thing of what I'm going to say, just so you can read it along. If there's a spelling mistake, my bad. But just go along with it and pretend like I'm amazing at spelling. So, there's this guy called Nabal. I'm saying Nabal. If I say it confidently, you'll just agree that is how you say it. So, guy called Nabal. And the thing about Nabal, the name, it literally means fool. So, his parents really loved him, obviously. My name means, I'm Michael, that's my real name, sounds very posh, but that means to be like God, okay? But imagine naming your kid Fool, love them. So Nabal, right, he's really wealthy, he has lots of sheep, lots of goats, lots of land, he's just like the main man in that area. He also has a wife, okay? A wife called Abigail, who is described as very wise and very beautiful. So, David, okay, this is before he's king. He is in the neighborhood. He's got his men with him. He's just kind of come away from King Saul trying to kill him. So, he's just come off of the back of a heated situation. And he's out in the wilderness and he hears of this guy called Nabal. And he's like, do you know what? I've helped this guy before. I've helped him look after his sheep. I've helped him, we've protected them from like robbers and all that kind of thing. And I'm going to ask him, we need some food, we need some provision. I'm going to go ask him if we can, if he can help us out. He's really rich, got loads of animals and all that kind of stuff. So he sends messengers, okay? And messengers go out and they get to Nabal and they say, David really needs your help. Can we have some food? And Nabal is like, no. Nabal's like, who is this David? Who even is he? Never heard of him in my life. See you later. You're not getting anything, okay? So Nabal rejects this offer of help, okay? And then the messengers go back and David is vexed. That word I said earlier, okay, that means angry for those of you that aren't down with it, okay? Obviously I am, because I'm a youth leader and all that. Anyway, so David gets vexed. He is so angry. He's like, what? Who's this Nabal? He said, who am I? But who's this Nabal? David is so angry. He's like the next king. He knows who he is. And he's like, this guy is messing me around. I'm going to sort him out. So he's like, right, let's show him a lesson. He decides, he's like, right, come on, men, let's go. We're going to sort him out. He's going to sort out, like, when I say sort out, he's going to kill Nabal and his whole household, okay? Because there was that, he's like, oh, you're not helping me out. So he sets off, but at Nabal's household, Nabal's wife, Abigail, hears about this, and she's like, Nabal's such a fool. What is he doing? So Abigail, behind Nabal's back, gets loads of provisions, loads of food, anything that they may need, and goes to meet David. She meets David, and David is just angry, raging. He is so, still ticked off, okay? I don't know if you've ever been angry and, I bet he was probably, when you kind of get into a bit of an argument and then you go away and then you're usually in the shower when this comes to you, you get all the comebacks that you could have said and you're like, I should have said that, that would have been so good. I bet he was doing that on his way to Nabal's family. All the comebacks were coming, I could say this. But anyway, Abigail meets him and Abigail's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for Nabal, for his foolishness. Here are all these provisions. And David's like, yes, thank you. I was just about to go and, beat him up and kill him. And you've just stopped me from doing that. God has sent me someone to stop me from committing murder, from going against God. So, David goes with his things and Abigail goes off home and says to Nabal, why? Like, you've been so foolish. Someone just wanted help and you rejected them. So that's pretty much the story. And, from out of that, Nabal ends up dying, okay? And I found this passage really hard to understand. I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. But Nabal ends up dying as a result of this. And David's like, thank you, God, that I didn't have to lay a finger on him. I wasn't the person who was being the judge. I wasn't making a judgment over him. Thank you that you took that away from me, so I didn't have to do that. So, I've got 3 points. If you take away anything from this evening, you take away these 3 points. And, I hope that these 3 points can show us that in our own situations, we know that we can always choose another way to act, okay? That not only honors God, that's not only worshipful to God, but also brings others closer to God, okay? That people can see that we've chosen another way of doing things where they're like, oh my goodness, this person is doing something that I didn't expect them to do in this situation. And if they're doing that, if they really believe that, that makes me want to go and find out more who this God is. So, point number one, wisdom over foolishness. So, as I said, this guy, Nabal, his name is fool. So you would expect that he is a fool. In the Bible, in the whole Bible, there's so many warnings and stuff about us being foolish, okay? And it tells us the dangers of being foolish, but also the blessings that come from us being wise. And so in my job, okay, so I work with the young people. They're awesome. Some of them are here tonight. And, part of that, I've got to be so wise. Like, some of the stuff that I get asked, I'm like, I don't know. What do I say? And what I've found is over I've been doing this job for nearly 4 years now, is there's not always a black or white answer. I feel like doing youth work, there's a lot of grey area, okay? And I feel like that's where wisdom comes in. Okay, it's wisdom. It's not to say that that person's wrong or that person's right, but it's to explore and it's to go, right, okay, what is, it could be, in a faith situation, what's God saying in this situation? What can be done in this situation that enables a positive outcome? In the book of James, James talks a lot about wisdom, and in chapter 3, he says, "But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It is also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others. It is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. It shows no favoritism and is always sincere. And those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness." So when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is amazing. That's literally what I do. No, I wish I could do it as well as that. So, having wisdom, it's not about necessarily having the right answers to say at the moment. I mean, that's my interpretation of it. And it's about being a peacemaker. It's about being gentle at all times. There's so many wise people that you can think of. Let's go for someone who's in a film. Let's go for Dumbledore, all right? Controversial, I know, but I'm going with it. So Dumbledore, okay, the Harry Potter films, he's super wise, but he's super gentle. Gandalf, they're pretty much the same person. He's wise, but he's also gentle. So, wisdom isn't just what we think is right, but it's a heavenly wisdom that is directly from God. It is when those grey areas, when there isn't necessarily right or wrong, but when one decision can impact someone in an incredibly positive way and bring them into a closer relationship with God. So we see how Nabal acted. In that definition that James gives, it's, willing to yield to others. And we see that, how Nabal acted. He wasn't willing to yield to anyone. The messengers came from David to Nabal, and Nabal was like, no, I'm amazing, and this David is no one. I'm not yielding anything over to this person. I'm standing firm. This is what I'm doing. But David, okay, on the other hand, he yielded to Abigail. So Abigail comes along with this other way. David's on this path, okay, of destruction and anger. And Abigail comes along and she's like, I'm so sorry. God doesn't want you to do what you're about to do. What about this? And then David's like, do you know what? That makes so much sense. He could have just carried on with what he was doing, but he yielded. And he was like, you know what? It's wiser not to follow through with what I'm doing. He chose to be a peacemaker rather than be foolish and go against God. And, the question that I got from that to really all I'm doing is raising questions for you to think about. So good luck with all these questions. Is how can we be wise and yield to others so that we can impact those around us? And how can we be peacemakers in situations that aren't so black and white, where there's the grey areas? Okay, so, I think with wisdom, we just think it's about being right, but it's not necessarily. It's about yielding, knowing, having that influence from God, that godly wisdom, that he gives us, where we're like, do you know what? I could go different directions, but I know that this direction is peacemaking, and it's fruitful than any other way I could take. Okay, so number 2, kindness over pride. So we've had wisdom over foolishness, now kindness over pride. So throughout the whole story, we see in so many ways that kindness wins over pride. So in the Jupp household, there is a very famous phrase that I really used to struggle with. And it was always in the heated arguments that this phrase would come out. And it would often be from Becca. and it would wind me up so much, it would be, it's better to be kind than to be right. So I grew up thinking that it's always better to be right than anything else in the world ever. And coming into this new way of thinking, I really struggled. When me and Rosie had a disagreement, I was always felt like I should be right. And, I found it really hard to be kind when I was like, oh, I'm right. I need to be teaching people that I'm right and they're wrong. And obviously, nothing, those arguments weren't great. And, there was no fruitfulness from that, okay? Nothing got solved, and, it wasn't great. And, I really struggled with this at first, but over the years, I've come to understand what that really looks like. So, in this story, it's both Nabal and David that are actually full of pride. And Nabal is prideful in the fact that he's wealthy, he has land and animals, whereas David is prideful in the fact that he's the next king of Israel. He's like the next big guy, and he's like, of course I'm going to be prideful. I'm the next king. He also chooses pride in the way that he behaves when Nabal rejects him. He's like, you know what? I'm going to be king. I'm going to show him who's boss. He's proud in everything that he's doing and who he is. And what's really interesting, so we were at Grandpa, a.k.a. David Thatcher. We were at his house for dinner earlier, and he gave me a book that was about this topic. And what was really interesting was it was saying how David was in the midst of this, just been tried to be killed by Saul. And he was like, you know what? Someone had an attempt on his life, and he was fine with it. He was like, I'm cool, I'm chill, I'm still close to God. God's got it. But as soon as Nabal criticized his identity, criticized himself, he couldn't hack it. He was like, I'm done. I'm going to kill you now. Okay? He lost it. For us, how often for us do we, God gives us these big challenges that can be really big victories, and we smash it, and then it comes to the little small things, and we just can't quite make it. We just can't quite make it over the line. If someone tries to, as soon as someone attacks our identity, that's when we're like, no, I've had enough. You're going to get what's coming to you, all that kind of thing. And, and David chose that pride. He chose that pride in that moment. He becomes vengeful. He becomes vengeful and wants to take matters into his own hands to prove that he was right. But then you see Abigail. She uses kindness in every situation. She uses her own wisdom that we spoke about earlier to choose kindness over pride. She could have been prideful like her husband, but she chose another way. And she could have also been prideful in the company of David. And she could have encouraged his pride because he's going to be the next king. But she stood up to David. She stood up to the king, the next king of Israel, and said, you know what? There's another way. You don't have to give in to this pridefulness, this small hurdle that you're stumbling over. You don't have to give in to that. You can choose another way. So we've got this picture in our bedroom. It's like a word thing from, Rosie got it from the Hillsong Colour Conference a couple of years ago. And it's on it, it's got the colours from the Colour Sisterhood. Woo! Colour Sisterhood. On the definition of kindness, it says it as this. It describes the state or quality of being friendly, generous, considerate, and kind-hearted, foundational in leading others to the one whose kindness leads all to salvation. So this is it. Our kindness in situations where people may not expect us to be kind are the things that lead people to Jesus. It's not necessarily lobbing a Bible at someone's head, go and read that, okay? It can be in the simplest of ways, in a situation where people are expecting us to freak out, go mental, go crazy at someone. If we chose to be kind in that moment, okay, if we chose not to be prideful and see it as an attack on ourselves, If we chose that in that moment, people would be like, whoa, they really believe this stuff. So, time's getting on, I've got to hurry. But Steve Case, who's Steve Case on bass, what a legend. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the worship team and he was playing, and I couldn't really see what chords I was playing and stuff because my phone is tiny. And I was like, oh, Steve, can I borrow your iPad for the service? And he was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, oh, I've got one that I might be getting rid of. And I was like, oh, cool, yeah, let me know. I'll pay you for it, all this kind of stuff. And then a couple of days later, he was like, got this iPad, I want you to have it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is so cool. Like someone's just giving me an iPad. This doesn't happen. And I was also chatting with Rosie, and we were saying, like, it's the kind things that people do that you remember. You carry that. Like, look, Rosie's got so many stories of things that people have done for her or that she's done for others, where people have remembered that, like, so long, like, such a long way into the future. Like, people just remember that stuff. And, in what situations can you choose to be kind that can impact someone, not just from that day on, but maybe for the whole of their lives, that then they could then go impact someone else. And the kindness that Abigail shows in this chapter, it isn't a fluffy kindness that's like, oh, I'm just going to be kind. I'm going to make sure that, I'm kind to everyone. If someone opposes my beliefs and stuff, I'm just going to be kind to them and shrink away and be like, oh, no, I didn't mean it, sorry. That's not what this kindness is. This kindness is a brave, strong kindness, okay, that that is constant, whatever the situation, and she shows kindness to people regardless of who they are in society. She's showing this strong kindness, but also her having a different opinion, she can still be kind in that, which is amazing. Like Brexit, how many of us aren't kind in those discussions that we've had with people? We don't have to agree with everyone, but we can definitely be kind. And then finally, I'll run through this really quickly. Final point, integrity over stubbornness. So David is a man known for, he's a man after God's own heart. He's a man full of integrity. And, there are a few moments in the Bible where he chooses his way over God's. But every time that David goes against God, we find him coming back to God saying, sorry, I messed up. The dictionary definition of integrity is this. Integrity is the practice of being honest and showing a consistent and uncompromising adherence to strong moral and ethical principles and values. It's when your behavior matches your beliefs. What you say matches what you do. So the differences between Nabal and David in this story is integrity. Nabal chooses to be stubborn and believe that he was right. His pride and foolishness had meant that he'd become more stubborn. David could have chosen stubbornness in the moment when Abigail met him and said, you could choose this. He could have been stubborn and gone, no, I'm right. But he didn't. He was honest with himself and he said, you know what? I might be making a mistake here. Abigail stopped David from committing murder against God, but it's David's integrity, his innermost being, knowing what the right thing is to do, that stopped him from committing murder, from going against God, that innermost thing. Craig Groeschel, who's the pastor of Life Church in America, he said that isn't it tragic that we live in a world that is more shocked by integrity than by the lack of integrity? If you do something that shows integrity, people are like, oh my goodness, why have you done that? What do you want from me? Like, they don't get it that because it's the right thing to do. They think there's a catch. And, to have integrity over stubbornness, it's a kingdom thing. We sometimes choose to be stubborn in a decision we made or an attitude that we have. And we choose that even though we may be wrong, we choose to sacrifice our integrity for being stubborn. If what we believe is Jesus and what we do is what God is calling us to do, then our integrity is our guide, and it can lead us and those around us into a closer relationship with God. So just to wrap it up really quickly. So Abigail has each of these 3 points. Can we go on to the next slide? There we go. She has each of these. She has wisdom, kindness, and integrity. You know, when I read that, I was like, there's someone who she seems like, who's wise, who's kind, who's integrity in the Bible. Oh, it's got to be Jesus. So she is like, she's just exactly like Jesus, okay? This is who Jesus is. Jesus is known for, he's wise, he's kind, he was kind to everyone, and even to the, religious leaders of the time. He may have been savage, okay? He may have put them in their place, but he was never unkind, okay? He was always loving. And his integrity, Jesus, he faced so much, hurt and everything for the truth that he came for, yet his integrity never wavered. And, these 3 attributes show us, that it's not about going into every situation like a wrecking ball. It's not about us going into every situation thinking that we're the only ones with the truth. And I know sometimes as Christians, that's what we think. We're the ones with the truth. Everyone else can do one. But that's not it. It's about showing who Jesus is through our kindness and through our integrity and through our wisdom. It's about us being brave, and to step out in that. It's about coming to the place where we can be back with God and going forward in our own faith, but also bringing others on the journey as well. Cool, thank you.